Time is speeding up. Chaos is shifting into a new level, and we feel the pull to unlock the mysteries of the universe. Timeless spiritual wisdom offers the point of stability to navigate these times and to open our greatest potential. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the fun and knowledge of visionary best-selling authors Shri and Kira as they explore these mysteries and invite your higher love to come forward. And now, here are Shri and Kira.
Namaste and welcome. I am Sri Ramka.
And I am Kira Ra, and welcome, beloved ones, to Higher Love. We are diving into a powerful subject today because we're going to talk about resurrection and victim consciousness, almost like two polar opposites, both sides of a scale, and why this is a subject that must be addressed head on. We have to look at this, and so do you.
You know, our lives are propelled forward by forces, and for the most part, these forces are unseen. The unseen forces lift us, steer us, direct us like the wind filling the sails of a ship. And so it's important to pause, to look closely, and to understand what are the energies that are expressing in my life, and do I enjoy them? Do I choose them? Because as we practice choosing, we live a life with purpose, with meaning, and with freedom. When we just live by default, I wonder where the wind's blowing.
Whew, and it can blow us everywhere, can it? You know, this is a really important subject because one of the things that we have been doing is really paying attention to what's happening on our planet right now. The energies that are swirling, the pervasive energies, and the energies that are trying to really stop true personal freedom. You know, the beauty of self-ascension is that self-ascension at its core essence is about the discovery of the freedom of the truth of who you are while you still have this body, while you're still in form, rather than waiting until a moment of transition or post this lifetime. And so when we talk about that, there is a counterbalance energy, and this counterbalance energy really influences everything. You know, the more that we talk about resurrection, the more that we talk about ascension, or leading into self-ascension, the absolute greatest barrier to that on this planet is victim consciousness. And so we really want to explore that and expand upon that because victim consciousness is everywhere. It's woven into everything, and it's so sly and so subtle that a lot of times you're not even aware of it.
You know, we want to slow down a little bit and explore this because victim consciousness has become a norm in virtually every society. And you can measure this by the sense of entitlement that people feel. Whether it's an entitlement to food stamps or an entitlement to medical aid or financial aid. Now, I want to be clear here. There's a difference between receiving aid when it's needed and a sense of entitlement. And this is why I want to slow down and explore it a little bit, because a lot of people are unwittingly embracing a disempowered orientation or victim consciousness.
Well, you know, that's true. And in a way, it's funny, I'm giggling and thinking, well, we're kind of experiencing that in a moment as I'm sitting here doing a poor me, because here we are in Guatemala doing our best to have a quiet studio to talk to you in during one of the noisiest times of the year.
There's all kinds of stuff going on outside.
And so the key is that, and I bring this up, Shri, because it's not just about the energy of entitlement, it's about the energy that runs our lives. It's the energy that runs our families.
Yes.
So let's just take a moment and first of all re-explain what the victim triangle is, because we need to start there and move forward. And by the end of this show, stay with us for the whole show, you're going to have so many big ahas on your own resurrection and self-ascension that you'll be glad you stayed with us. So it begins with a triangle. You know, maybe draw a little triangle for yourself, literally a little three-pointed triangle.
You know, and on that triangle, on one of the corners, write the word victim.
Any random corner will do.
There's three possible locations.
Exactly, go for it.
So write the word victim on one of the corners. And let's get clear, what is a victim? A victim is a person that feels helpless, that feels that something happened to them. So that's kind of the general sense of being a victim. It wasn't fair, it happened to me, I need help. That kind of an energy. Victim energy, for the most part, is a disempowered, a collapsed energy. Now you could say, gosh, I just had an accident and I broke my leg. Well, yeah, you're disempowered in that moment. You are indeed a victim of that accident. Now, whether you're holding victim consciousness during that time is a different discernment.
And that's why we're giving you this model. We want to build the model, and then we're going to go through and talk about it more. And remember, if you have a lot of ahas during this show, go to our website, shriandkira.com, go to the Self-Ascension Classroom, our home study university, and get Ascended Sanity.
Ascended Sanity is a bargain.
It's $22. It's crazy.
And this concept is explored with a lot more meat and information in Ascended Sanity.
Yeah, powerful course where it's 3 hours of training from Shri and I, plus a workbook.
So we have our happy triangle, and on one corner it says victim. Now, a victim cannot exist without a perpetrator.
So pick a corner.
So somewhere on that triangle is the aggressive energy, the conflictual energy. We're calling that the perpetrator or the abuser. In the case of an emotional situation, the victim has an abuser. So you can put that in parentheses if you want, the perpetrator or the abuser.
Because, what would a victim be without an abuser? How could you be a victim, right?
Exactly. So either circumstances have victimized you, or a person has, or institution.
And you don't need to fill in the who or the what. Right now it's just about identifying the triangle.
So there we go. Now we've got a victim and a perpetrator. There's one energy left that is always available, and that is the rescuer.
Dun, 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 the white horse.
The white horse, the champion, the white knight. And so where there's a victim, there had to have been some sort of aggressive energy, some perpetrator, and then to balance the triangle, there is the rescuer, the champion. Now consider that for a moment and smile, that wherever there's a victim, there's a perpetrator and a rescuer. Well, wherever there's a rescuer, there's a victim and a perpetrator.
Now think about that. These three are a triangle, and in order for this, kind of like a three-legged stool, in order for this to stand, you need all three legs.
All three.
And now, that, by the way, two of those legs can be one person or one situation.
That's
it doesn't
true.
have to be three different energies or three different people.
What you have is three distinct expressions, energy expressions, but it could all be embodied in one person. It's like the angry person who slaps somebody and then says, "Oh, I'm sorry," and wipes their tears and buys them an ice cream cone.
So that's where you have that perpetrator-rescuer, right?
Perpetrator-rescuer in the same body. So these three energies are very useful as you look out into the world. For example, somebody who never can quite get a leg up, meaning they're always needing aid, they're always needing family help or social support, they're really kind of victimized by life. I wonder who the perpetrator is, because there is one. A person can't be a victim unless there's an energy that's oppressing them.
And let's take this one on, and it's only a half an hour show. The victim can also be their own perpetrator.
That's true.
That's something else you want to pay attention to. You can actually be the perpetrator of your own victimhood, and this is before we talk about the global reasons why a mass victim consciousness is easy to control.
And so the reason we're kind of dwelling on this is it's important to look inside and discover the times you've played the role.
Absolutely.
Because we grew up with it. Every child out there says, "Oh no, I didn't do it, Billy did it." That energy of blame and denying responsibility, the energy of being the victim or being the perpetrator, trying to displace responsibility.
Or how about being the rescuer?
Or being the rescuer.
Right, I'm the one that's going to make it all better,
Because
that's my role.
when you're the rescuer, when you're
Yeah.
the one that comes in and makes it all better, you feel like you're above the situation. You get a sense of power that I can fix it.
Or you get a sense of, I don't have to look at my own victimhood because I'm going to go over here and rescue everyone else. Now women, a lot of women fall into this category. It's all about the self-sacrifice. I will be the rescuer of my children. I will be the rescuer for a cause of animals. I see a lot of people who work in animal rights that are very good about applying the rescue energy because they're victims in one aspect of their life, so they become literal rescuers in another aspect of their life.
And when they see something that they consider unjust, all of a sudden the anger comes up and they
Huge anger.
become the perpetrator.
Without knowing it.
They're beating up on somebody who did the best they knew how and inadvertently created stress for another being or another organization.
In the name of. Now think about how complex this is.
So look at the interwoven victim triangles.
Exactly.
And there's levels of them because, you know what? Life isn't fair. It isn't fair. It's an opportunity. You can create a sense of gratitude and fairness, but is it really fair? Do we all have the same income? Do we all have the same opportunities?
No.
No.
However, we all have the same ability, the inherent soul-based energy of ascension. And so we talked about, this show is about resurrecting through this victim consciousness. And so the reality is, I want to remind you again, self-ascension is about discovering your true personal freedom while you still have a body and being able to live a life free from the victim consciousness. Now that is a huge challenge because in order to free yourself of victim consciousness, you have to have the courage, and it takes courage to look at all three roles in your life, because no matter how balanced you feel your family is, no matter what type of situation you are in right now, if you sit down and you take a hard look with a broad view lens, you are going to find victim, persecutor, rescuer in play in your life in some aspect. And again, it can be very, very subtle. It can be very, very sly.
It's not so subtle in most families.
True.
But
it is more subtle as we grow through our families.
As we mature, as we gain
Absolutely.
in our personal strength and empowerment, we don't play the game as much.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a game the whole family loves to play. And usually when there's kids, one's going to be the rescuer, one's going to be the victim, one's the perpetrator, or they triangle with a parent, and one parent is the perpetrator, the other is the rescuer, making it all better. It's a family game, and we all learned it.
So let's take that family game and say, okay, let's look at that in terms of organized religion. Let's look at that in terms of the energies of doubt, guilt, fear, shame. Let's look at those four: doubt, guilt, fear, and shame.
Yes.
Those are all the energies of the victim, right? Doubting the self, that's why you are the victim, right? How about this guilt, this horrid guilt that's perpetrated in so many religions to keep you almost in a victim role?
To be the original sin.
Right.
I'm embodying the sin it's my legacy.
Right. Or how about the fact that Jesus died for you because you are such a sinner, and that you are incapable of interpreting or understanding the greater mysteries. These are very powerful belief systems that appear on a global level that are not isolated to any one belief system. They are steeped within societal values, they are steeped within religious values, they are steeped within familial structures, and they are steeped within your psyche from the time you are born. It is no wonder that this model of victim, perpetrator, rescuer is so alive and well. It is living in a banquet of energy.
A banquet, and it's a characteristic of human consciousness that becomes self-perpetuating.
Exactly.
We learn it, we swallow it, we accept it.
And then we become good at it.
Well,
Right?
yes,
We
some
become
people-
really good at the nuances of it. And this is why we need to talk about how to resurrect through it. You can't just discard it, you can't ignore it. Anytime you're ignoring it, you've usually fallen into one of the other roles, and becoming very good at those roles, you think that you've overcome. And this is why in the second half of the show, we're going to talk about how society deals with this, why society wants you in this game, and what it takes to break through and find your self-ascension and your resurrection.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Namaste, beloved one. This is Kira Ra, and I am inviting you to take a journey of the soul in the land of the heart. Imagine your life free from chaos and filled with creative clarity. Imagine waking up each day in your private lakefront casita, greeted by brilliant sun, flowers, and birds. It is here that you will effortlessly resurrect your divine blueprint in pristine energy. Yes, I am inviting you to join us for a personal resurrection.
Welcome back. And we hope that you have not been victimizing yourself in any way
or rescuing anybody during the commercial break.
Because this is not about judging yourself as lacking. It's about waking up.
You know, it's exactly the opposite of that. We're helping you to get rid of those 4 energies that are part of this victim triangle.
Because judgment in its harshest form is a form of victim energy.
Absolutely. Well, it's actually the perpetrator, you know, it's really that way.
It's the perpetrator creating the victim, and it's a game you play inside by thinking less of yourself,
exactly.
and judging oneself harshly. So that's a victim energy that we run internally. Well, the victim energy is a game. It's truly a game. Hey, anybody want to play with me? Let's find some way to put down this person and fix it and judge it, and we run the circle.
Partners in pain, right? You know, this is one of the things we talk about all the time, is that during the time where before you really awaken your consciousness, you will draw to yourself, you call them friends, we tend to call them partners in pain, because usually you have what's most in common with your immediate social circle is that you all align around the same pain, meaning you have the same judgments around the same pain.
So, for example, we all have challenges in our life, and whether it's a difficult work relationship or a difficult friend relationship,
or whatever,
and you get dumped by your boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever it is, the first thing that typically happens is we'll run to someone else that will gossip or listen to us. So they're serving a rescuer role.
Feel it? You see it?
While we go, oh, it was terrible, it happened to me, and they go,
Victim
oh,
role.
you poor dear, oh, this
Right.
shouldn't have happened to you. So now, who healed? There was a venting of energy, but was there any healing that happened there? Or did one person practice being a victim and the other practice comforting as the rescuer?
Now take a breath, really feel that one. Because like we mentioned earlier in the first part of the show, this energy is so ingrained and so subtle that even talking about it has been taboo. And that's why we're saying no, now is the time to talk about it, because you must ask yourself one question. Am I ready in this lifetime to say, enough, I want to ascend, I want to feel my resurrection, I want to be free to enjoy an amazing life? Well, if you do, you must walk through this triangle, and that's what the second half, what we're going to talk about right now, how to do that.
And so following up on that example of the one friend, got beat up by life in some way, the other friend is the comforter, the enabler, the rescuer. Well, what happens after this person, who everyone keeps running to for reassurance, for a hug, take you out for coffee, I'll listen. What happens when this person gets tired?
Whew!
What happens? Usually what happens is an energy rises and they snap out and they say, I don't want to hear it anymore.
They become the perpetrator.
You're screwed up. You're always screwing up.
Yep.
They became the perpetrator.
Exactly. Very, very common. And it's because it's an unbalanced energy. Any one of these 3 points is unbalanced. How many people do you know that probably have a victim type energy around them, and yet everybody says they're such a nice person, they're such a good person, why do such terrible things happen to them? You ever have that person you know, but they're constantly drawing in victim energy, yet everyone thinks they're so nice, they're so sweet? Now, the reality is, I'm sure they are nice and sweet, however, they are disempowered, they are out of balance, and they have not called in their loving discernment in order to birth their wisdom, because they're stuck in this victim triangle. And this is a very common place for a lot of very awake people, because they don't know how to find their empowerment. They're afraid of it.
Empowerment for many people is just a thought. It's a intellectual concept, but at the emotional level, they haven't quite found the fortitude to just stand up and say, I'm not going to play anymore. I don't want to show up for that game.
Now, I've got to jump in here, because that's where it takes a lot of courage. Consider this, beloved ones. How many people do you know on their journey of awakening, or those that have connected with past lives, that say, I'm terrified of my power. I did something in a past life, or I can't forgive myself, or I'm terrified of my real power.
Or the reason I have this terrible illness or this terrible relationship is because I have a karmic thing with this.
Now, come on, you guys already know the answer to this, don't you? Victim consciousness. That is a victim consciousness. The minute you even declare that or own that, you are trapping yourself from your own enlightenment, because all you've done is created a more sophisticated version of your own victimhood, which means you're going to find your perpetrators and you're going to find your rescuers.
Oh, you found a grand and cosmological reason to suffer.
Exactly.
The moment you're aware that there's an energy, perhaps from a past life, that is hurting, that doesn't feel good, in that very moment you've been given the keys to the kingdom.
You're free if
You say,
give yourself the
okay,
gift.
I choose to step out of that now.
I'm ready.
As opposed to, I choose to embrace it, bring it on, let me
Right.
suffer more.
And let me call to myself in my life right now, plenty of people that can play those supporting cast roles of perpetrator and rescuer to support my victim consciousness, which has now become more sophisticated. You know, beloved ones, this is why a lot of spiritual teachers are so popular. They're actually putting themselves in the rescuer role. They will tell you what they want to hear, what you want to hear. They will do whatever it takes to keep you in victim consciousness, which also means you will never be given the gift of having a true empowered spiritual leader look you in the eye and not allow you to get away with your victim consciousness. Now at that point you can either grow, pop, and be free, or you can put the spiritual leader in the role of the perpetrator, because that's a lot more comfortable and a lot easier to do. And you know, I have to straight talk here about the models in India. This is why the guru-chela relationship was so sacred, because the chela, the student, gave the guru, the teacher, absolute authority to not let them get away with anything. And the guru would not accept a student or a chela until they tested them a little bit on that, until they made it a little hard to see if the student was really willing to break through. Most people are not ready to break through, and so they will always put whoever is around them into one of those three roles, because that's the pervasive energy on this planet. While fear may be the predominant energy that people see, the reality is that fear can only be present because it's basically the top of the three-legged stool that is the victim triangle.
And so this triad of energies, the victim, the rescuer, the persecutor, is really one energy that spins three faces.
Exactly.
It's like there's a merry-go-round, and which role is showing up in front of the camera.
It's like that plate spinner. You know,
Yes.
but the guy's got three poles on one plate, and the plate is fear.
And the reason you know it's true is because you play all three roles with yourself.
Exactly.
You know, you'll beat yourself up, and then you'll take yourself out for the ice cream cone. You know,
And then you'll beat yourself up again.
we learn how to do all three roles very well. One of the things, you know, you're mentioning about a lot of these so-called authorities, whether it's an empowerment teacher, spiritual teacher, etc. What are they empowering? What are they teaching, or who? And the false teachings, the ones that will not carry you for the long term, are actually reinforcing your righteousness.
Yes.
They're teaching you what they call empowerment, but it's really a rationalization as opposed to a liberation.
It's a coping mechanism rather than a freedom mechanism. And see, that's what self-ascension is. Self-ascension is the path of freedom. And I'm talking about the freedom that can never be taken away from you, because it transcends this boundary that is false and that has been placed on you. You are living inside an artificial triangle that has a lid of fear on top of it. And until you give yourself the gift of removing yourself from that situation, you will always be trapped by it. You can make yourself feel good about it, you can make yourself feel comfortable with it, but the reality is, if you really want to be free, then you're going to need to take a hard look at yourself, an honest hard look at yourself. Get that mirror out, look in the mirror, love yourself, and say, thank God I've noticed. Because the first step of breaking free is realizing you're playing the roles, or that you're inserting people into roles, or noticing that all your partners in pain, aka friends, are playing those roles with you.
You know, these partners in pain, it can be very challenging to first break free, because we enjoy the community. We enjoy a sense of belonging, a sense of trust.
Absolutely.
So those are the qualities we want from our friends, but then we also get this baggage.
Yes.
And so one little trick that our Esina brethren have offered to us, when a person is in pain or in delusion and they're beginning to speak of something that is going to take you on the merry-go-round.
And you'll be aware of it, right? It's going to feel like perpetrator or victim.
You'll feel
right?
it in the change in the voice or
Right.
the energy emanating. One suggestion is to simply reach out with sincerity, take a breath, touch their shoulder and say, excuse me, even though you may believe this to be true, I choose not to talk about it.
And then talk about something
And
uplifting.
change the subject to something positive.
They also suggest in that moment to offer them a glass of water. To just offer them a glass of water and offer yourself a glass of water, because in a glass of water is universal flow, restoration, and clarity. Think about that. A different triangle. Flow, restoration, and clarity versus victim, perpetrator, rescuer. And one simple glass of water can do that. And you know, Shri and I talk a lot about this and really offer you an enormous amount of information on how to lift off this game board of victim consciousness, because you can't play your way off, in our Ascended Sanity program. And we encourage you now more than ever. The energy on the planet is here. The energy is ready. Do you want resurrection, or do you want a more sophisticated victim consciousness? Are you ready for your own self-ascension and to live a life of true freedom? If you are, listen to this show over and over and over again. Find $22 and get our Ascended Sanity Home Study program. Literally $200 and more worth of material and a lifetime of freedom waiting for you to lift off this game board that seeks to keep you stuck.
It is up to you. And there is more than one way to solve things. There's more than one way to take a step. When we take a step, we're taking action. We're saying, I'm ready to accept a new reality. But as long as we rearrange the same chips, the same content, the same friends, the same job, the same junk, you're going to have a pretty stinky stew.
You will.
It's the same old stuff, just rearranged. Now this is basic. Once you say, yeah, I get that, I know that. Well then, what are you going to do about it?
Yes.
What will you do about it? Because this energy is prevalent at all levels of what we call density consciousness, the game board of normal life. And density consciousness is the consciousness that always believes that it is separate from true bliss, true union, separate from true freedom. And that brings us to one more tip to take home with you today. Freedom is an act of empowerment.
Yes, it is.
Not an escape from pain.
Now take that in. It is an act of empowerment, not an escape from pain. And beloved angels, you have the right to live your life free, but you're going to need to walk through with some courage, because going from victim consciousness to self-ascension and resurrection, there is this little area that you're going to have to walk through, and you're going to need some tools. What are you willing to do to walk through, and are you ready to walk through? It's your choice. It's your life. How would you like to live it? And until we have the absolute pleasure and gift of sharing time with you again, bring a hand to your heart right now, taking a deep breath with a smile, and may your heart know that all is truly well.
Thank you for joining us today for 2012 Higher Love. Remember that you can find out more about Shri and Kira by going to shriandkira.com. That's SRIANDKIRA.